under age 10 that are taken, okay? You're going to get a nice letter back and say, a freedom of information request does not require us to compile data for you, okay? Yeah, so you have to know exactly what you're asking for. You can ask for budget, you can ask for contracts, you can ask for reports, but you have to know exactly what it is you have to identify. Yeah, so let me tell you another problem. I just ran into this in it for you. I have some clients who were interviewed by a detective, a recorded interview, and they didn't get a copy of it in discovery. We kind of got through part of the hearing, and I thought, well, you know, that's should be public record. I should be able to just FOIA that. I shouldn't have to be able to subpoena it. And so I sent a FOIA request to the Sheriff's Department to ask for an audio copy of my own client's interview, okay? Nobody else is being interviewed, my own client. They sent a letter back to me and said, well, you can't have it because it is now part of an investigation in another criminal action. So they're denying me the audio file of my own client's interview. So that's what, you know, you run into, FOIA is just like you're tripping over yourself all the time. So that's the issues I've had with it.
But DHS, I got to give credit where credit's due. They haven't stonewalled me. They haven't pulled too much of that. Well, help, you know, define state employee. Right?
And how do you know that you're getting all that information? You don't.
Well, I'm not having to sue. I don't, but I'm not having to sue to get any information. They haven't redacted the entire document like they used to. You know, and what I'm looking for, I've got enough to get me on to the next step. So, you know, like they haven't. I know when I'm being stonewalled. I know when they're not giving me stuff, and right now I have to give them the benefit of the doubt. I feel that in good faith, the person that's in charge of the data at DHS now, I think it's Rebecca Lee. I got to tell you, I think in good faith that she's doing her job and giving me what I'm asking for to the best of her ability. I'll tell you what I did for you today. Kentucky put out a story or a study that had the number of AWOL. Dependent neglect, or AWOL foster kids, right? And I got to thinking, you know, and I have for a couple of years been meaning to get that data, because you never hear it talked about here. Anybody here ever hear Arkansas talk about missing foster kids? Well, anyway, so I thought, you know what, and I have OCD and I'm really scattered, and I know y'all couldn't tell that. But I had meant to do it several times. I actually did it the other day. I FOIA'd that. I said, Rebecca, under the Freedom of Information Act, I would like the statistics that DHS has regarding AWOL foster kids. And I did anticipate, well, we don't know what AWOL is. So I said, in case my request is unclear, because I know this is new, I've attached a link to the article from our neighbor, and that's what I'm looking for, if that helps you. So she said back, she goes, you know what, I'll get right on it. I'm glad you did. This is new to me too. And then I didn't have a chance to open it because I was late coming in here, always running late. But I got I saw the summary that said something about change data. So I asked for 3 years data, you know, and so I think the answer is going to be that changes every day. So then my next thing is going to be, well, okay, well, do I want every day for the last month? I really don't. So I may have to crunch, find somebody that can add, I use my fingers, and crunch 3 years worth of data to do an average. You know, but we're not going to get identities. I did say I would like to know the age and the sex of the ones that have gone missing, and I think that that's relevant. So, you know, to answer your question, I think in this state, if you know what to ask for, I think they're probably going to give it to you.
This is back to what you were talking about. So you're saying the state can use your client's evidence against them, but you cannot listen to it?
That's exactly what I said, and that's exactly what happened.
So you can't even have that dismissed as, you know, been discovered?
Well, we're kind of in the middle of this case. It was a case that came to me late. I had real short time. I didn't really have time to prepare, but so the case is kind of in the middle. But I know that the caseworker was testifying about what my client said in that interview. My client said that ain't what we said. I'm like, okay, well, we have another hearing coming up. I'll get that recording. And I actually got a hold of the detective. I talked to him. He said they were supposed to subpoena me. They didn't. And so I said, well, I'm just going to request it. So right now they're stonewalling me.
And well, you said there was another crime committed. That's why they can't share that information with you.
A third party was involved.
Okay, so when that case goes to trial, couldn't you sit in and listen to that recording?
Oh, absolutely. But that's a year and a half away. I need it like tomorrow. So, yeah, I mean, ultimately. But right now, it's not that, it's not the third party who's being interviewed, it's my client.
Right.
And they won't give it to me. And it's exculpatory for my client and could impeach what the social worker actually said about them.
Talking about impeaching, a few of us got a body cam bill and tried to get it run in 2017 to put body cams on investigators and caseworkers for when they come in contact with parents. Because time and time again, it's their word against my client's word. It's just ridiculous in this day and age. That a couple of years ago, you could get a top-of-the-line body cam for $500, right? If we equipped all of the state police investigators and all of the investigators from Department of Human Services, that's $100,000, okay? Well, governor said we'll have to look into that. That's a lot of money, $100,000 for an agency that has a $9 billion budget.
But they can lose
That-
26 million,
Well-
and not even, and don't know where it went.
That's peanuts. That same year, there was a law put forth, and it was unanimously voted for, to give the Burlesworth Foundation $1 million from DHS. You know, whether that check was cut or not, I don't know, they didn't do with that, but the law passed, and it passed as an emergency measure. Department of Human Services is going to appropriate $1 million for the Burlesworth Foundation for football pads and glasses, right? And then when I said put body cams on these workers to protect them too, right? Because if they're not doing anything wrong, right? So, that's $100,000. Gee, I don't know. Now today, I don't know, 2 years later, you can get a little body cam thing that uploads by Wi-Fi. Yeah. You know, but they don't want that because their stock in trade is the fact that they can make the truth whatever they want it to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what happened to me, I mean, 20 years ago, I'm going to tell you, this is how backwards we've gone. 20 years ago, when all we had were magnetic tapes and tape recorders, you remember that, right? They recorded interviews with kids. I could go in, I could make an appointment, I could go in a DCS office, I could say, I want to listen to, and I actually had one of those big boom boxes that would let me duplicate if I wanted to. But I could go in and sit down and listen to a magnetic tape interview of a child. Okay, they stopped doing it. And then about 3 years ago, a state legislator in Tennessee proposed legislation that said that if a DCS worker goes into a school to interview a child without a parent present, they would either record the interview or they would have a third party present. And they came in. Now remember, our governor has 40 lobbyists that goes to the General Assembly and lobbies to protect their agencies. 40, okay? And then DCS sends their own people in to talk. She said they came in and lobbied against the bill. And I said, why? And she goes, here's what they told me. She said, if we go into a school, we interview a child and audio tape it, and the child doesn't disclose anything, but let's say 2 or 3 weeks down the road, the child does disclose something, why, we would have to give that parent and their attorney the first audio where they didn't make a disclosure, and it would be used against our case. Yeah, that's called evidence.
Exculpatory evidence.
Exculpatory evidence. Criminals have more rights than parents do, and that's one way that they do. They're taking the testimony of children, and in Tennessee we have this, this hearsay thing, it's an exception, it's called 80325, and it says that it's a hearsay exception for somebody to say what a kid said if it relates to abuse or neglect. So these social workers can come in and say, well, the kid said Dad hit me, the kid said this, the kid said that. There can be absolutely no corroborating evidence. And yet, that social worker can testify to that. And now they have extended it to say, for psychological abuse. They're like, well, the kid told me that they don't get to eat breakfast, and they're put on this bus in the morning before they go to school, and their parents tell them that, you know, they didn't get ready in time, and if they can't get ready in time, they're not going to get breakfast, and that's psychological abuse. And now they're saying that a social worker can come to court and say that, you know, a kid said I was put on the bus without breakfast because I didn't get up on time.
Here in this state, Publication 357 lists, it's a protocol manual for abuse investigations for the Department of Human Services. And it lists what the maltreatment definitions are. There's a new definition, and this year it's called history at variance with injury. So what that means is if anybody at Children's Hospital doesn't believe what happened, that in and of itself is now declared to be abuse. Okay? They also have psychological abuse, and one of the indicators of psychological abuse is it can be if it's a child with divorce, and the parents are arguing or subjecting that child to the aspects of the divorce. And that's right after they acknowledge divorce is traumatic, you know, no matter what. So, and it's so subjective, and it's really, really dangerous, because history at variance with an injury is not itself abuse.
Exactly.
Okay? Stuff happens and you don't see it. Stuff happens and you can't explain it, right? This evidence-based medicine is going to kill us all if we let them do it. But these child at-risk teams, they have to find abuse. And they're so skewed and they have such tunnel vision. A client back here, she was abused of shaken baby syndrome not once, but twice. Okay? A 5-year-old, beautiful, healthy girl with no history of abuse whatsoever. An infant that's 10 months that has a brain group, BESS 95th percentile, more susceptible, very tiny brain group. But it was a life-threatening injury that required, with the other baby, $143,000 worth of testing, but no medical treatment. And it's so subjective. And they, you know, a child abuse specialist wouldn't be a child abuse specialist without child abuse. It's impossible, you know. When you got to hammer everything's in there. And when you can bill $143,000 and get paid in 2 days for testing.
And child abuse experts are not an expert in they're not a specialist in anything. They're not a specialist in radiology. They're not a specialist in orthopedics. They're not a specialist in hematology. They're not a specialist in anything except after they get their pediatrics certification, they do a, what do they call it, a fellowship. They do a fellowship for 18, 24 months and follow around another child abuse expert. And they have now, with the American Pediatric Association, a child abuse expert area, and they do publications about how to find child abuse. And it's everything that we can't explain some other way must be child abuse. Must be child abuse. On Shaken Baby, there is not one case that we've ever found that it's actually documented that somebody witnessed a baby being shaken and those injuries occurring. I've got a dad in Tennessee who's sitting in prison for 14 years because of shaken baby syndrome. And there was nothing in that case medically that made sense.
Well, now they call it abusive head trauma.
Yeah, I know.
Because shaken baby syndrome, we're finding out that's junk science. The Swedes have said that, Modus, Virginia, Washington, the Supreme Court has said basically junk science. People are getting let out, but the Innocence Project is another nonprofit that helps people that are in that situation. And that's where that pro bono doctor came from. Actually, he had worked with them. But you can't depend on that. You know, that's 1 in a million chance.
You know, I'm sitting here listening to you, and it sounds like there's more people involved than just the legislators having sovereign immunity. Can you go at the lobbyists and those companies as being co-conspirators of this?
Well, that's a good question, yeah, and that runs deep and wide too. There's a website called opensecrets.org, which is a really fun website to go to if you want to do some research. You can go there and you can type in, you can search by keyword. Basically, you type in foster care, you get 114 lobbyists who are in Washington, D.C. lobbying for foster care.
The thing is that since they have the money that's been given to these kickbacks or whatever you want to do, right, or whatever, since they're the ones doing it, seems like I would want to go after them because the others have sovereign immunity, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you cut off the funding and the resources, and you cut the rest of it off.
You know, that's a great, and I'm glad you brought that up because I have actually thought through this upside down and backwards, and I haven't talked to Joe about it, but a lot of people say, why don't you bring a RICO action? And a RICO action is basically a mob action. And you have to have like 4 different elements. You have to have money passing, you have to have an enterprise, more than 2 people. There has to be some type of crime that has to do with either wire fraud or bank fraud or something. But you are exactly right. I am struggling with my mind to figure out how to include these a major foster care company. I have right now a lawsuit in which a child abuse expert, I have sued Vanderbilt Medical Center and the doctor, which is a private entity, which is, they say they're a nonprofit, but they are a private entity that has no immunity. And I am trying to do that, okay, from in that
You
perspective.
brought up the expert witness thing, right?
Yeah.
You already called them on it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an end. That's
Yeah.
a shoe in the door.
Oh, and because
And then you just move on from there and start working down.
But in Arkansas, there's a statute that prohibits you from collecting a judgment against a nonprofit. So even if you sued Children's, you couldn't collect a judgment. So you're limited to insurance. It's tricky over here.
Yeah. Woo, yeah.
It's tricky. And that's the way I like it. I like it tricky.
The people in the children's, whenever my niece was in there, they straight up told us, they wait till parents leave so that they can ask children if there's any abuse. Like,
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, Medicaid approved the testing of meconium. So in other words, if you're poor and you're on Medicaid, they're going to test your baby's meconium for drugs. Okay? And they're ensnaring women that might have smoked a pot before they even knew they were pregnant. So what's the purpose of that?
Yeah, it's now going to say, why stop there? Because, I mean, how many CNAs, RNAs, emergency staff are on payroll for one of these companies that, these side companies, and they're calling up on people when they come in with a scratch or a bump. And like you said, when the parents leave, they pull the child aside with this worker once they call them up.
Well, right now, reporters have immunity, right?
What's that?
Reporters have immunity.
Mandated reporters have immunity.
Right. So you
For
can't-
making the call.
Right.
You know, which is a very narrow.
But if you could pinpoint medical staff doing it, that would create a RICO, because then you have another entity that's
Well,
involved.
at Children's, again, Arkansas is a little bit different from everybody else. We're the only
No,
one that has a
that's
police
not
body.
data. How many children are taken from families out of hospital? That's all trackable data.
Right, but it doesn't matter if that doctor that made the decision that it was life-threatening is working for UAMS, who is a state employee, because
Right.
a state employee has sovereign immunity here. So, you know, there's so many levels of immunity.
Even though state employees have sovereign immunity, I'm the one that has successfully sued Senator Hutchinson. And three other, one was a state rep, one was a Washington DC attorney, and the other one was running for attorney general.
But did you sue them for something that had taken place within their official duties?
No, I sued,
That's what sovereign immunity is going to apply to, in their official capacity.
and that clarifies it for everybody that's questioning
Right.
suing. You can sue them if you can flip it. I flipped it into federal fraud.
but you have to do the person, is that what y'all?
Yes, I sue personally.
Which is what I do. In Tennessee, I have a state agency too, so I have 2 lawsuits right now. I have sued the individual worker, because honestly, I mean, I think at the end of the day, if I get a judgment against that worker, I can at least negotiate with the state and, you know, get some money out of it, so. Oh, and ADA, there's no immunity.
In federal court, right? The 11th Amendment doesn't apply under the ADA Act. So I'm going to follow her lead. She's filed a lawsuit under the ADA. It's the same case I got in Jonesboro. Mother with, they don't call it Asperger's now. They're level 1 on the spectrum for Alzheimer's. Or not Alzheimer's.
Autism.
Autism. I've got the Alzheimer's just in there. But in that case, the baby also, we suspect, his primary care physician has said, I've seen this boy for a 2-year period, and he displays symptoms of autism, and the whole thing came from the baby was underweight, the mother very thin too, sensory issues with people on the spectrum. They may not like the texture or the taste of food or something, so it's an aversion of food. They said, and it was Dr. Clingfield, children, she said, we're going to put a feeding tube in. And the mother said, well, I think I want to go to Tennessee and get a second opinion. Bam! So next thing you know, you got a feeding tube in, right? Well, they tried to blame it on the mother. The children's hospitals basically said, you know, she's the one, she neglected, even though she'd taken him to the hospital so many times. And the judge in that case, and it's still going on, and I'm proud of him, he marked through that the baby was malnutrition because of the mother's actions. So he did not find that it was neglect or abuse. But here's the problem. That baby 18 months later is still with foster parents, and they want to terminate on her. And guess what? 18 months later, the baby still has the feeding tube in. Okay? So the mother didn't cause the problem, and they are discriminating against her. So I pray, and I'm thankful. There's no way I could do this stuff that I do without somebody doing it before, because I can't draft the complaints from scratch. You just don't have the time to do it. So people like Sean and Connie that have gone before us, we share homework all the time.
I do want to say there's one huge success story. I don't know if you've read this case or not, but I called the attorney and had him send me the entire 96-page amended complaint. In northern Indiana, they got $31 million. And it was a case where, in just kind of the short story of, there was a young girl, she was probably about 12 or 13 years old, she had a blood disorder. Mom had the child, and she was taking care of the child. She married, there was a stepfather involved. They moved to another city. And when they go to another city and she goes to the pharmacy to get the medication, they give her the wrong dosage. They like triple what she was supposed to take, which was basically a blood thinner. And so they put this little like 12, 13-year-old girl on this increased medication, and she literally stands up, gets out of bed, and drops dead on the floor. And the DCES in Indiana came in, swooped in. There was like 3 other children in the home, took all 4 children and kept them, and they sued. It included the autopsy person was involved in information that they had concealed and hid over this. But you know, that attorney, there was another attorney out of Oregon. She came to Indiana full-time, gave her life to it, did all the research, the prep on it, put it all together, but they went to jury trial, got $31 million, and then of course they appealed. And I have to look at who the judgment's actually against.
Did they upload the actual verdict?
Well, here's what happened. So they go to the circuit court to get the verdict reduced, and they go to mediation. And in mediation, they settle for $25 million. So that's still a decent day at the park.
Well, at least they can't appeal the attorney's fees. That's what they did in Sean. They appealed the interlocutory set, they appealed the trial verdict, then they appealed the award of attorney's fees. So 10 years later, that's why it became $10 million. $6 million was attorney's fees.
Right,
You know, one person can't do that.
right.
And